Close ruptured pipes, inactive treatment plants, and possible mismanagement have left Puerto Ricans struggling to find clean water. Video provided by Newsy News. Look, Puerto Ricans still without electricity more than 5 weeks after a massive hurricane devastated the island are fleeing to the U.S. mainland by the thousands. Some, such as 36-year-old Grace Castro and her family, are settling in with relatives in Arizona, far from central Florida, where a massive wave of nearly 75,000 Puerto Ricans has arrived since Hurricane Maria slammed the U.S. territory on Sept. 20, hauling 2 large bags stuffed with clothing. Castro, 36, arrived in Phoenix a little over a week ago with her 4-year-old son, Yetziel Barrios, her 63-year-old mother, Maria Arroyo, and her 91-year-old grandmother, Engracia Morales. The 4 moved in with Castro's sister, Elizabeth Reyes, 33, who has lived in Phoenix for the past 2 years since moving here herself from Puerto Rico with her twin 13-year-old sons. Now that she is in Arizona, Castro said she has no plans to return to Puerto Rico, except to sell her house and collect the rest of her belongings and bring them to Phoenix. The plan is to stay here permanently, said Castro, seated at a dining room table inside her sister's small but comfortable 2-bedroom apartment near Maryland and 18th Avenues in North Central Phoenix. In the living room, her grandmother sat on the sofa watching television under a Puerto Rican flag that hung on the wall. Her grandmother suffers from Alzheimer's and dementia, Castro said. Her mother also has several health problems, including heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, and it had become too hard to care for them both in Puerto Rico, Castro said. More Puerto Ricans in AZ desperate to reach relatives. Castro and her family rode out Hurricane Maria in their cement house in Toa Alta, a municipality west of San Juan, the capital. Their house withstood Hurricane Maria, which barreled through the island as a Category 4 storm, packing 140 miles per hour winds, causing catastrophic damage and an ongoing humanitarian crisis. But Castro said she and her family survived for weeks without electricity, running water, cell phone service, the internet, television, and refrigeration. For drinking water, they resorted to collecting rain in buckets from their roof and lived on canned food they stockpiled before the storm hit. During the day, they stood in line up to 6 hours to buy ice to make cold drinks to keep cool. At night, afraid to go outside because of a rise in crime, they burned candles for light. They sweltered through the tropical heat, unable to sleep without air conditioning, until Reyes and Phoenix mailed them a small battery-operated light and fan. We were living just day to day, Castro said. More Puerto Ricans coming to mainland. Grace Castro, 36, talks with her 4-year-old son, Yetziel, at Castro's sister's Phoenix apartment. Yetziel holds the small battery-operated light the family used after Hurricane Maria cut power to their home and to the rest of Puerto Rico in September. Photo Nicosia. The Republic. Puerto Ricans were granted U.S. citizenship in 1917, nearly 20 years after the Spanish-American War, which ended with the U.S. taking possession of the island, converting it into a U.S. territory. As U.S. citizens, Puerto Ricans are free to move at will to the U.S. mainland. Between 114,000 and 213,000 Puerto Ricans are expected to soon leave the island due to Hurricane Maria, according to the Center for Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College. Over the next 2 years, Puerto Rico may lose up to 470,335 people, or 14% of the island's 3.4 million people, according to the center. The new exodus is on top of the 500,000 Puerto Ricans who already left Puerto Rico over the past decade seeking better economic opportunities because of the island's ongoing financial crisis, the center said. Even before the hurricane, the island was already over $70 billion in public debt. Reed Valley native. Completely invisible response in Puerto Rico. More than 40% of the island's population lives in poverty, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The island has an unemployment rate of 10%, according to the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics. Puerto Ricans have been moving to the mainland in large numbers since the 1950s, when 250,000 Puerto Ricans left and settled largely in New York City and the surrounding area as well as in Chicago. But the latest wave has been settling largely in Florida, which, with over 1 million Puerto Ricans, has the second highest Puerto Rican population in the U.S. Florida is expected to soon surpass New York as the state with the largest number of Puerto Ricans. In 2015, nearly 89,000 Puerto Ricans settled in Florida, mostly around the Orlando and Kissimmee areas in the central part of the state, more than any other year, said Crystalis Capiello, a psychology professor at Arizona State University who studies Puerto Rican migration. By comparison, nearly that many Puerto Ricans have arrived in Florida just since the hurricane hit, she said. There are now far more Puerto Ricans living in the United States, 5.5 million, than in Puerto Rico, 3.4 million, according to the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. Close Nydia Stewart, 58, a founder of the Puerto Rican Center of Arizona, has relatives who were battered by Hurricane Maria. The group is organizing a drive to collect bottled water and other necessities to send to victims there. Video by AsCentral.com. As the stateside population has swelled, increasing numbers of Puerto Ricans are finding their way to states other than New York, New Jersey and Florida, settling in Texas, Georgia, and Arizona, drawn by warm weather, cheaper housing and better economic opportunities, Capello said. Among those leaving are many professionals who can't find jobs in Puerto Rico but are forced to take jobs in the U.S. below their education levels because they often don't speak English, she said. Related wife Lake is stalling hurricane relief for Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rican population in Arizona is growing fast, Capello said. It grew 27% to 44,257 from 2010 to 2014. About 19,102 Puerto Ricans live in the Phoenix area, she said, citing U.S. Census data from the American Community Survey. She said she expects the Puerto Rican population in Arizona to swell even more as more families fleeing the devastation caused by Hurricane Maria move here to live with relatives. I wouldn't think it would be as significant as Florida, Georgia or Texas, but we will definitely see an increase, she said. She also expects most of those who move to Arizona from Puerto Rico to settle here permanently because it will take years for the island to recover from the hurricane and there is no end in sight to the island's financial crisis, which has triggered cuts in government services. Schools also remain closed and may not reopen until the new year, she said. Our hypothesis is that it's going to be a permanent relocation, she said. Move is earlier than expected. Elizabeth Thrice left. Grace Castro's sister, moved to Phoenix from Puerto Rico in 2015 with her 2 sons, seeking better employment opportunities. She now works at the Puerto Rico Latin Bar and Grill in Phoenix, which serves the valley's growing Puerto Rican community. Photo Nicosa. The Republic Castro's sister, Elizabeth Reyes, moved to Phoenix in 2015 with her 2 sons, seeking better employment opportunities. She shared an apartment with her stepdaughter, who moved to Phoenix from Puerto Rico 8 years ago, until she found her own place. Reyes now works as a cashier at a restaurant, the Puerto Rico Latin Bar and Grill, on Thomas Street in West Phoenix. Castro said she was already considering moving to Phoenix before the hurricane hit because the economic crisis had made it difficult to find a good-paying job and had also spurred an increase in crime. She had been working at a call center doing technological support in Puerto Rico, but in Phoenix she hoped to land a job in human resources or customer service using a degree in business administration she recently completed. What happened with the hurricane just speeded up her move to Phoenix, Castro said. Fighting to repeal the Jones Act. Pressure is building for Congress to pass legislation to exempt Puerto Rico from a 100-year-old shipping law that many Puerto Ricans believe is hurting the island's hurricane recovery. They plan to march in Washington, D.C., on November 19, calling on Congress to exempt Puerto Rico from the Jones Act. The law requires goods shipped between U.S. ports to be transported only on ships owned and operated by Americans. The purpose of the march is to bring to light the oppression of the people when it comes to the Jones Act, said Carmencita Perez, the 50-year-old surprise singer and hairdresser of Puerto Rican descent. Plans to attend with her husband, David Velasquez, a school administrator who is also of Puerto Rican descent. The couple are leading an effort in Arizona to get Puerto Ricans to attend the march. They're also collecting signatures calling on lawmakers in Congress to kill the Jones Act. In the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, President Donald Trump issued a waiver of the Jones Act so that foreign-operated ships could temporarily deliver much-needed supplies to Puerto Rico. But the waiver expired October 8, and the White House has indicated it will not be extended. Meanwhile, Republican Sens. John McCain of Arizona and Mike Lee of Utah have introduced legislation to permanently exempt Puerto Rico from the law. Our legislation would permanently exempt Puerto Rico from the Jones Act, an antiquated, protectionist law that has driven up costs and crippled Puerto Rico's economy, McCain said in an earlier statement. For years, I have fought to fully repeal the Jones Act, which has long outlived its purpose to the benefit of special interests. It's time for Congress to take action, end this injustice, and help our fellow citizens in this time of need. On Monday, Perez planned to deliver 141 signed invitations to McCain's Phoenix office asking him to attend the Washington, D.C., march in solidarity with Puerto Ricans, Perez said. We know that since Puerto Rico does not have a vote in Congress, it is our obligation to compel Congress to support legislation to enable Puerto Rico to come back even stronger from this catastrophic disaster. A long-term solution begins with the lifting of the Jones Act, the letter states. She also planned to deliver a 3-by-5-foot flag of Puerto Rico. Read or share this story. https://ec.cc2hpmprk